nervous?
No.
Where's your answer?
Dennis Beckham, let the ball on! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Oh!
Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it.
Welcome to the Suffering from Joy podcast. My name's Devin. Nice little mid-season review for you. No game this week, but we thought we'd get something out for you guys. I do want to give a special shout out to Santi Cazorla for bringing his hometown club, Real Oviedo, to La Liga again. For those of you who don't know, he had a literally 2-year injury in his late 30s, came back and just decided to basically play for free for his hometown club. Got them promoted, so always nice to see him do well a little after his 40th birthday. Joining us today, Brad, how you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. It's a nice, beautiful, hot weekend here in Austin, but, also kind of nice to not have a game for a change.
Yeah.
It's been, 4 months of a game every week at least? So
yeah, and it feels like we have 2 every week, but
yeah,
getting a little bit of a break. Seth, who knows everything. Seth, how you feeling?
It's as hot in Chicago this weekend as it's been in Austin, and I almost don't know how to react to it. It was like I was offered Cubs tickets today, and I was like, it's going to be 97 degrees, and the seats are in the sun. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that anymore in my life.
No, you're past that point. Oh, I did forget to mention, we have a special guest this week. Mike Lahoud, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. Seth, love the new haircut. And you guys talk about hot. It's almost Austin levels hot, believe it or not, up in the Northeast in New York City. So it's kind of a reminder that the heat, if the Northeast won't kill you, the heat will at some point. So, but yeah, glad to be on talking football.
New York City is the only place I've been to a professional sporting event where they have actively encouraged you not to buy a beer because it was that hot one day at a Yankees game. And they kept running water stations and don't buy beer.
No way. I believe it today. So we were actually up in Newport, Rhode Island, and by the time we left, which was around maybe 4:30, it was 94 degrees. So heat wave is being felt here.
And the thing is, we get so used to it. I mean, in Chicago, we now have AC pretty much in every building. But I feel like up in Newport and a lot of parts of Connecticut, they're just still don't have AC everywhere. And when you don't have AC everywhere, it's like Austin when it's 25 degrees. People don't know what to do. It might not last long, but when it's there, it's bad.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, that's always a reference point. No matter how hot it gets here, it'll never be Texas heat. So as long as we don't have that, I'm good.
We can make fun of everyone. Be like, oh, I remember when it was way hotter than this.
Yeah.
Just be thankful you don't have to play today in 94-degree heat.
Oh, dude. Yeah, these are the days I don't miss playing.
Actually, before we get into real stuff here, where was the worst? What's the hottest match you've ever had to play? Because obviously you played in San Antonio for a few years. You played in Miami for a little bit. Where was the worst place? We're watching the Club World Cup that's going on in this, and you watch these European players just dying out here right now. Curious, how you'd get used to that.
So worst place in terms of heat I've ever played was in Dallas. I think it's actually still recorded as the hottest game in MLS history. It was 120 with the heat index on the field, and that stadium is built kind of underground. And I just remember our coach at the time, Preki, came out and he was all about high pressing. And Jesse Marsh looked at him and was like, do the opposite of whatever he says. We're not getting pressed, dude. And we actually went and won the game. So that was kind of the little just foreshadowing of Jesse being a successful coach as a player.
Good. Yeah, I think we went to a Gold Cup game. We're actually recording during the USA Haiti Gold Cup match 10 years ago in Kansas City. And I want to say it was 112 heat index at kickoff, which was 9 p.m. I think it was actually a US Haiti game now that I think about it. But yeah. And we were pre-gaming in the parking lot and just gave up and had an entire case of water and we were just handing stuff out to people. A bunch of kids who are a little, let's call them inexperienced, started walking around, and we had one that we were like, no, you need to drink water. And he's like, no, and then threw up on the back of Riley's car. But hey, I like to think he survived. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
we sent him packing with some water. Okay, yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about mid-season stuff. I know it's not mathematically mid-season, but It's a good time to kind of, take stock of everything. Like Brad said, feels like we've had a million games. So we're just going to kind of freeform this. We're on here every week. So Mike, I want to kind of get your general thoughts on, how's the season going? What can we do going forward? However you want to kind of intro here. Let's go.
Yeah, as I said, it's good to be on, and what a difference that makes, right? The sky was falling down. The back of the net wasn't rippling. If anything, the back of the net for Austin FC was rippling way too much. And sometimes simplifying things and going straight up 4-4-2 makes everyone's role that much easier. And I played for different coaches who thought they were Pep Guardiola, different coaches who thought they were Alex Ferguson. And at the end of the day, the most successful coaches in Major League Soccer, you look at a Bruce Arena, you look at a Bob Bradley, before he went to LAFC, but at different points, you look at the late Shiggy Smith. They play 4-4-2, and they get results. So it's good to see Austin FC starting to get in the mindset of doing whatever you have to do to get results, especially at home before this little pause. So I'm started from the bottom. Now we're here. So I'll take it.
Within the 4-4-2 structure, Mike, looking back and then kind of looking forward, I think the question is, where does Mirto Uzuni fit into this structure and the way this team is playing? There's some thought process maybe that over the next little bit, they're going to move him a little wider, kind of like a runner down the left side, much like Osman Bukhari has been on the right side. He's been tucked in more throughout the beginning of the season. Where do you think he's going to be most effective playing this system in a 4-4-2 if we continue to play like this?
I think when you have a new player trying to figure things out, I remember the Seattle Sounders did this with Argentinian, played for Ajax, Mauro something. His name will come to me later. And Siggy Schmidt gave him a free roll because he had structure down the spine of the team. And he kind of played as a left forward. And it changed their whole attack. And on the field, it was a nightmare playing against him because you couldn't figure out if he was a striker. You couldn't figure out if he was an attacking midfielder. But everything kind of went around him. And he oftentimes, go USA, baby. He oftentimes was a thorn in our side. So in a 4-4-2, when you have players, Patrick Azimod, I wish he played for Austin FC, by the way, but that's another transfer podcast we'll do later. But when you have players that are trying to figure it out, I often say allow them, irregardless of where they're on the field, allow them to drift in half spaces and let them grow their confidence. But I'm kind of interested to see what you guys see because you get to watch him in the flesh week in to week out.
No, I think I'm going to kind of agree twice with you here, where giving him kind of a free roll is nice, but also I think what we've been doing lately with the proper football heritage, the 4-4-2, where everything's just much more simple. I think he's in his own head. He's complicating things that don't need to be complicated. Maybe just having a little bit of let's just kind of go out and have some fun, guys. A couple games like that would help a little bit. Brad, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was during the Colorado match where the announcers, and I forgot who was doing the broadcast at the time, said that Nico Estevez was going to eventually use Uzuni down the left side as more of a runner than what he has been so far, where he has been kind of tucked in and almost trying to get inside. He and Vasquez has almost been playing on top of each other a lot of this year. And instead basically have he and Bukhari as double runners down the sides, using Vasquez as more of a point man. I know that's not what he's done in the past necessarily, but I think that opens up a world of possibilities for this team moving forward. And I kind of would prefer to see that.
Look, I love that shot. Transition is Major League Soccer. Major League Soccer is transition. And when you look at the bread and butter of Nico Estevez having success in Major League Soccer with that team from up north on I-35 that we can't name, maybe on this podcast or other podcasts. We can? Okay, Dallas. Speed was the thing that crushed so many teams they played against. So I think that's a great shout. Speed's another way. If you have speed on both flanks, you look at the recent goals that Brandon Vasquez has scored. You look at the last match against Red Bulls. Having pace, it just wore the Red Bulls down, wore them down. And it creates chaos that from the 60th minute to the end of the match, man, I don't want to be chasing two fast players. If I'm an opponent, I want to give all my resources on focusing on Bukhari. Like if you can shut that down, then you have a lifeline. But now if you have two wild cards in terms of pacey players who can get in, that gives a new dynamic to the team.
But it's also, I think it's actually, you have to look at it as 4 players that are pacey. Because one of the things that I've noticed is our biggest difference of this season is the first 2 matches of the season, and about the first 20 minutes, we had Mikkel Dessler in there. Mm-hmm. He gets hurt, and then he's come back in the last few weeks. And this team with him being able to run his pace, Biru's pace is sometimes hit and miss there on the side. But being like, I feel like for this team to be successful, you actually have to move up the left and the right flank. Like if you're just going to move up one side, any team can effectively double or triple team Bukhari. I mean, that's not exactly what's happening, but like you get to that world where if you can open up another option there and have players who can actually cross it in there, like suddenly you're not just stuck with, okay, this is the one thing Austin FC is going to do for goals. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this team has scored 4 times in the last 2 matches after scoring 11 in the first 17.
It's incredible how you look at some of the players who under Josh Wolf played about 19 positions, and we were trying to figure out, and I think a lot of us were kind of calling for them to have more freedom to get higher up the field, like a Danny Pereira. You look at him and Owen Wolf, who've just woken up in a different way that you're like, oh, okay, as a young player, any manager who made my job simple and said, if you're Owen, make sure you play off of Brandon Vasquez's shoulder. Stay connected with him, play in the half spaces, get the ball, look for Vasquez. 4-4-2, you can do that. When you're on the road, you play a 4-4-1-1 because Owen can give you more support in midfield. But those 2 players have come to life in a way that I think we were seeing them limited by playing anything else.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it, and I want to get kind of like a player perspective here. We always, definitely criticize Josh Wolf for this, and a little bit Nico too. Like, how much of this is just, taking the handbrake off, taking the shackles off, and letting them play their game versus like tactical instruction, or like, hey, maybe sometimes guys just don't have good games.
Yeah, sometimes when you're a new manager, you try and assert yourself in to kind of get buy-in and credibility because some of these players have been used to one voice up until, this season, right? And so managers overdo it oftentimes. And I think of a manager that was one of my favorite and unfortunately got let go by the Philadelphia Union. But his strength, Jim Curtin, his strength was never tactics. He probably had the simplest tactics. But he gave players the simplest instructions to go with those tactics. And he made everything clear. His ability to manage in those moments, I think for Nico, to be able to manage, to tell Usman, this, you don't have to live up to whatever you think you're trying to do out there. I need you to get out wide, take people on, and make sure the ball gets into Brandon Vasquez. Anytime you're in the final third, there has to be an end product. Owen, stay connected to Brandon. Get good delivery from dead ball situations. Danny, be our link between the attack. We need an end product from you. Set pieces. We're going to get goals. It just makes your communication that more, clearer, I guess, and concise. And I think more MLS coaches should go that route until you start building your DNA. You start kind of getting entrenched in one club. But 4-4-2, man, I'm not going to knock it.
If it ain't broke, right? It is interesting too how in the past 45 60 days, I don't know the exact timeline, but like early May, people were calling for Bukhari to be benched and other people to play in his stead, and now he's getting triple teamed and he's our entire offense. So that does give me a little hope on the Uzuni question. But, these are long summers. We have kind of some breaks here with multiple tournaments, some legitimate, some not. How much does that summer kind of weigh on you as a player, and how much do you like progress tactically as the season goes along?
I think this summer, and I look at it in when I was younger, and as I got to be more of an experienced player, the summer was, as a young player, it was such an important time for self correction. And so I remember I got my first career assist in the summer against the New York Red Bull because it felt like everything finally clicked. The game was slowing down in a way. Some of the newer players that we got the start of the season started understanding their movements. As an older player, I learned how to pace myself. I learned just that sixth sense for what the game needed. And the summer is all about getting results. You look at the best teams. No one goes back and says, Austin FC played a 4-4-2. They only got 5 shots. They won 2-0. Doesn't really satisfy my aesthetic needs. No, they got 3 points. And they got 3 points. And they got 3 points. So summer's about instilling that winning mentality that carries you into the fall. And I hope this is the start of something really, really good in terms of the team learning how to win when it's all hands on deck, learning how to win when it's transition game. It's really good to see them score off dead ball situations because that's how you win certain games that you may not be playing your best. All the best teams in the league and around the world do it. So there's some things there that's like, okay, there's some optimism brewing.
So one thing that Nico Estevez has harped on that, and I'm guilty of maybe being one of the ones who said that we got to be doing better than what we have been earlier. But he said, hey, we're still getting used to playing with each other. We're still trying to figure out how things work. What is, from a player perspective, a realistic timeline to new coach, half the roster's new? Like, what's a realistic timeline to really figure out like how to play with each other and what kind of structure you really do want to play with so the pieces fit together?
I think if you give yourselves 3 months out from the last game of the season, those 3 months, that's your last third of the season, where that's when you have to see what's the clear identity of this team, what's the pulse in this team, what's the mentality. As fans, can we expect this team to get results, or is it going to be, oh crap, we got, I know San Diego has been the bogey team this year, but is it going to be, oh crap, we got LAFC coming in, oh, this one's going to lose, oh, we got the Red Bulls coming in, this one's going to be a loss. But I always felt by that July part of the season, as a player, having that second nature feel about, I know what Danny's going to do. I know what Brandon's going to do. I know Brandon wants early service. If you're Usman Bakar and you don't know that by now, there's a problem. But seeing that connection result in a game-winning goal, that's a good thing. And so, but I always felt as a player, that July point, that's a no turning back of like who we are.
We have posited on this show that it seems like the season kind of took a turnaround against El Paso in that U.S. Open Cup match. Down 2-0 at halftime, a 3-goal burst in 7 minutes. And since then, yes, the next game was a loss at Cincinnati, but it was a competitive game at FC Cincinnati. And a game against Atlanta where we probably should have won. We gave up a goal late, but the team's been playing better since that moment, it seems like. And of course, another Open Cup win just a couple of weeks later against Houston with 3 goals in the back of the net, and an Open Cup quarterfinal to look forward to here in a few weeks. What have you seen that has been so different since that point against El Paso, number one? And then number two, some teams take Open Cup seriously, others don't. It's a quarterfinal now. I think everybody's very much in the point of let's go win this. What's the feeling like in a locker room when you get into these knockout tournaments this deep?
So I can tell you that this is why I'm such a big advocate for the Open Cup. The U.S. Open Cup can change the mental headspace of a team in a locker room like that. And sometimes being in those situations where you have to pull yourself out of the trenches and your star player, the guy you're paying the most money, is the one who wakes up and says, oh my gosh, I remember how to score goals again and important goals. When you come to the brink of potential disaster, it gives the team a reference point to now look to of like, okay, we can rely on Brandon Vasquez to score some goals that are super important. And we, unfortunately, with Philadelphia, I think we depended too much on the Open Cup to wake us up, to be that smelling salt. But it can give you confidence in both boxes. And so when you have a striker that's getting you goals now, it sometimes inspires your back line. And Austin FC becoming, and to answer your first question, Austin FC just becoming more competitive and less of the team that if you get one, you're going to get two, right? In the last year and a half, that was the vibe. Every time I watched Austin FC, it was don't concede the first goal. Don't give up back-to-back goals, because if it's two, it's going to be three, or it could be worse. And you go back to the 2022 season, there was something about that season, yes, making the Western Conference, championship game was incredible, but it's the comeback wins that we remember, right? Those are the most memorable things. And so seeing the back line be a lot more just fearless, seeing the back line develop more trust, I think it's giving confidence in the attack. As an attacking player and is as say an attack-minded midfielder or a winger, you now know that, oh crap, I can maybe gamble 10 minutes before the final whistle because I know my backline, my goalkeeper, they have my back. So I feel like you're starting to see that a bit more, and there's starting to be more kind of football savviness and in-game management and savviness about the team that I have to applaud.
Yeah, do you think that's kind of come out more? The backline can rely on the, more forward players to actually score a couple goals if something happens, and that gives you a little more comfort, and kind of the reverse too. Like, hey, maybe I miss a big chance, but like I know my backline's got my back. The game isn't over. Does that whole thing just sort of like jolt through the entire team? And like you mentioned, your big money guys scoring goals. Like, is that just something that sort of like clicks, or does it kind of come like week by week by week?
I think it's something that's just progressive. It starts with the initial point, but I love that. Okay, if Brandon's not going to be at 10 goals, or 15 goals halfway, that's amazing. If he's not going to be your Denny Bouanga, who's scoring goals for fun in the league, then that sense of goals by committee, I think it develops that as well. And so, yeah, there's a reason why having a good back line, you think of the best Nashville sides in recent years. Their back line was their strength. You think of Nashville now, for crying out loud. They don't give you much defensively, and it's given the Sam Surges, it's given the Hani Mukhtars time to remember that they know where the goal is. And so if you give your attacking players time by in a 4-4-2, two blocks of four, saying we're going to do the dirty work, I'm going to go and make that goal-saving tackle, or Stuver, I'm going to make that save to keep you guys in it. It's almost like a lottery for who's going to make either the winning play or the play that gets you a valuable point to keep kind of booming your confidence.
Looking ahead, there's the transfer window in the summer, I think, is going to be huge for this team. Pretty much an agreement that we need another center back, if nothing for depth, if nothing else. But what other position, we're full up on our designated player positions. What would you target for the missing piece of this team for the last 10, 12 games of the regular season post-transfer window?
Well, I mean, I've always thought in the post-Sebastian Driussi era, we've seen how having a quality attacking midfielder, especially amazing, and you have to pay a premium dollar to get it. And I know in the past it's been using Rubio as a second striker, but it's hard to replace. What Owen's doing is amazing, but to get just added quality in that attacking midfield position or that second striker position, man, if you can get someone to be an upgrade in the link between that 2 banks of 4 and Brandon Vasquez, who I'm hearing some rumors about Vasquez and certain Mexican
Bullshit. He's
club.
not going to Chivas. Like,
You
Okay,
saw that
okay.
too, but there's no way, right?
there's
This
no.
basic
Okay.
This is a
I
man
just
whose
wanted to put
wife
it out there.
refused. I was going to say, this is a man whose wife refused to move to Mexico. Like, she was there for a bit. She's not going back to Mexico. They have a young
Okay.
kid.
Okay. Hey,
You know
don't
what?
kill
Like,
the
hey,
rumor
you
mill.
know what? I will. There'll be a nice dinner sent to your house if Brandon Vasquez ends up at Chivas. But
No,
like,
I don't want the dinner. I want him to
but no,
stay.
like, yeah, no, but I think Brandon is very happy. Like, I mean, you know
Yeah.
this at this point. Like, there's just like there's going to be rumors. I mean, remember, this is the
Yeah.
team that infamously bid $500,000 for Brandon Vasquez when he was at FC Cincinnati because they saw that's what his transfer market value was. And FC Cincinnati came back up. Can you put an extra zero on that?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I want to kind of piggyback on Brad's question here. Like, I think we all, at least on the show, agree, along with, classic movie cult hero Billy Bob, we need a fucking 10. But beyond that, we've talked a little bit about having maybe like Biru shift inside as a center back and maybe signing a little more of a Dessler player to play on the left side, or do we need another center back? Like, how do you fix that kind of extra spot we have on the back line?
And also remember, we have the most amount of TAM available of any team in the league, and we have 2 international spots to play with this window.
So who are we getting? Would you guys use that? I mean, obviously, would you guys use that in Major League Soccer? And if you had a dream, just like, okay, this guy would unlock miracles on left-hand side for Austin FC, who would you guys go after?
Well, my dream would be to go back in time and put all the money that we spent on Azuni and take Evander instead. But that's
Yeah,
that was the dream we wanted before we actually ever signed either one or before we ever signed Uzuni.
Yeah.
I would lop off of both of Trent Alexander-Arnold's legs, swap them, and then sign him. I know that's not a great answer, but that's what I got for you. No, I mean, just sort of like a do it everything and a guy who can go inside and outside, kind of left back. We all like John. He's a little bit, kind of one dimensional. He's not getting up and down the line. He's not cutting inside. He's great at, sending in crosses. But I think somebody who's like, hey, maybe he's a threat to go outside. Maybe he's a threat to come inside. Beer is great coming in, but he's not exactly the wide threat we need. So, I'm not exactly up to date on my profiling, MLS level TAM players or anything, but somebody in that kind of ballpark I think we could use. But, at the same time, too, like a good solid center back, and maybe we can repurpose Bureau a little bit.
You need to get championship manager and get in the market.
Michael, one thing I've thought of lately, and Seth shepherded me around London for a week over the holidays, and we saw a ton of soccer over there, and at all kinds of different levels. And one thing that stood out to me was I think this league does not do a good enough job of mining championship level and upper tier League One type players that I feel like you could get at a very affordable price.
Yeah.
Am I wrong there in thinking that?
No, you're not. And I've always struggled to understand kind of the mindset around that. I think sometimes a disdain that surrounds players in, the equivalent to that here in USL. And there's some damn good players in the USL. There are. I've played against them. I played in the Open Cup and been like, "Oh,
I mean, we came close.
That guy needs to start."
I mean, I can't tell you the amount of us when Diego Luna was trying to come through El Paso that were like, well, bring this guy in here. He could be a U22 right off the bat. And I mean, credit to RSL for getting him. But like, if us, the three of us as amateurs, obviously you're slightly different on this, Mike, but still, like, if we can identify this with our amateur trained eyes here, like, I have to imagine there's scouts here that are trying to, like, have to be able to find players. Like, I'll be honest, like I hadn't heard of Mikkel Dessler before we signed him, but like I see like, okay, there has to be these quality players that our scouting networks throughout the world have to be identifying. And it seems like in recent years, MLS has had a big breakthrough in Belgium of signing a lot of the top Belgian players who have been coming over here. I'm curious, like, I mean, it's interesting. Like we're talking about the championship. I mean, the most expensive signing in MLS history for a transfer is not Lionel Messi. It wasn't David Beckham. It's Emmanuel Latelaz, who is from Middlesbrough and hasn't done much at all for Atlanta so far this year with $22 million.
Yeah,
but
you guys go.
I was going to say, but we also saw players like Seth and I saw him in person, Charlie Kelman, who he's on loan from QPR, plays for Leyton Orient. He was the League One leading scorer this year. And, oh, by the way, he's a U.S. citizen, so he doesn't take up international roster spot. Like, if I'm sitting here just wondering if I'm in the league, why am I not targeting someone like that as an MLS GM that you can probably get on a transfer fee relatively cheap? It's not going to cost you a DP spot, and you have a proven goal scorer at a pretty solid level over in England at that point.
I think a lot of times in the league, it's kind of the musical chairs on what country, what league is the hottest talent property pool lately. I remember when I started off in the league, if you were a Liga MX player, you were the dog with balls. Like every coach wanted to pay for an older Liga MX player. Every team was going to get someone in there. Then it became, if you were from Colombia and you were younger and up and coming, everyone was paying for that. Then it became, if you're Argentinian, everyone was paying for that, right? Or if you're Paraguayan, with what Atlanta United did with Miguel Morón, got him young and then developed him, cashed in. There is something that's happening, and I got to go to TST and play in broadcast. Do not underestimate how significant those trips from your Wrexhams, your Plymouths, where players on those teams are coming to the States. They're not coming just to see if they can win $1 million. They're coming to see, oh, I wonder what it's like here. And that was the number one thing on. Tell us more. What's it like in Major League Soccer? So what's the travel like? The seed's now being planted, and the failure of Emmanuel Latelaz in the final third is Atlanta United's. That's theirs to deal with. But the price tag behind it, don't be surprised if more and more players of that level, their agents will be knocking at the door for MLS clubs saying, "Oh, I got a guy, and he's worth an investment." But there's real interest from championship players to League One players about coming to the U.S.
And we've seen some of that too with Devin and Seth and I. We've talked on this podcast several times about mining Eastern Europe. We're seeing that with Svatak, right? We've seen that with John Kolmanich on this team, and getting some really quality players at affordable prices. It just seems like the scouting network of this league overall can at times be very narrow. I think you just hit on why. Yeah. And as a fan, it's frustrating, right? Because you see players in other leagues and around the world that could be valuable. I think this league does a terrible job, quite frankly, of scouting Asia, right? There's so much talent over there. And Africa in the same way, that could be really beneficial. Understanding, of course, that there are international slot issues that you have to deal with. You only have 8 per team. But you can get around, or you still find really good quality, as we're finding with the Desslers of the world, as we're finding with Svataks, without having to use up those DP spots. And it just seems like there's a narrow-mindedness in this league that it's frustrating as a fan.
Yeah, and some of it too comes from the league initiative, and this is why single entity I have a problem with in a lot of ways. And there's been so much benefit to single entity in getting soccer in this country to where it's at. But at some point, you got to take the leash off. You got to take the blinders off in it. And so because MLS does have an initiative with academy players, and right now the initiative with them is limiting what you could go and get for a player in Eastern Europe, in Asia, there's more of a focus on, okay, we're going to try and get kids from our academy at all costs and put them front and center, whether they're ready or not. And yes, I do believe that young American players, giving them chances, but I'd much rather have a young American player who bursts through that's on a team who can learn from a player who's really good from Eastern Europe, who's really good from Asia, who's really good from Africa. Putting a player out there for ticking off a box, that's a disservice to some of these young players. So I'm with you guys. I'm all from day one. I mean, some of the players I've had in preseason camps coming from places like Greece, wanting to play for MLS clubs and getting turned around because they're Greek, because they played in the Greek Super League. And yeah, they had Champions League experience, but they played the Greek Super League. So it was as if someone went on a Wikipedia page and was like, never really heard much about the Greek Super League, so I'm going to pass on this guy. And it's like, what? So I think you're onto something about the need to expand our horizons.
So I think this is actually not just for Mike, because I know you've been doing a lot of talking here, but we're at a really interesting junction point. We are a year from now, we will be in the group stage of the 2026 World Cup that is primarily in the United States. You have a Club World Cup that's going on here right now. You have a Gold Cup that's also going on here right now. That, like, you have more soccer available than you've ever had. And you've had MLS, which is effectively, I mean, from the time you started playing in the league to today, has built a really strong following in most of its 28 markets at this point. I guess I'm considering New York and LA one market for this, but like has done a very good job of building in most, not every market. I mean, we laugh at Houston having 5,000 people at games, but like for the most part, like has done a good job of building up most of its local teams, but hasn't really built up a league-wide narrative. Like people are fans of Austin FC. They're fans of the New York Red Bulls. They're fans of a team. They're not fans of MLS, where people are like, oh, I'm a fan of the EPL. Like, yeah, I might be an Arsenal supporter or a Liverpool supporter, but like you're going to go watch Brighton versus Crystal Palace at 12:30 on a Saturday because it's on, because it's like, okay, this is good enough. Like, okay, that's on NBC right now, or it's on Peacock. Yeah, sure, I'll turn it on.
Yeah.
So it's getting to the world like, okay, we've talked about salary caps, we've talked about it, but like I think you just made a really compelling case that like adding 2 or 3 international spots might actually be one of the more competitive things that is actually cheaper to do than a lot of the other things that are not necessarily like the big sexy, like we need to blow up everything. And it's like, I don't think we necessarily need to blow up everything. We just need to be able to get enough competitive players so the Seattle Sounders can feel like they can get a draw against Botafogo.
I would love that. You look at, I think of a club like LAFC, who they've changed their recruitment strategy in significant ways. You had the Carlos Vela era, where the recruitment strategy was you had a Mexican superstar, you had a Colombian defensive midfielder who in Atuesta, who's gone on to have a really solid career in Major League Soccer in Brazil. Their best investment after Carlos Vela is Denny Bouanga. I don't think anyone here even knew who Denny Bouanga existed. The only reason why I knew him because I saw him score out of this world goal in the Coupe de France for Saint Etienne. But before that, didn't even know who he was, what he looked like. But they were strategic about getting a player that was outside of the typical MLS profile mold. Denny Bouanga is a world beater. He's why you can even get to the Club World Cup. Imagine if you're putting that same strategy, if Austin FC, if all these other clubs put the same focus and strategy on finding that diamond in the rough that's off the beaten path. I mean, it might be Austin FC playing against Botafogo and you know some of these dream teams in the future for the Club World Cup.
I wonder too, not just like, international slots are a thing that exists in other leagues, or you have to have a certain amount of like domestic or homegrown players. I mean, Mike, you get to talk to people who are kind of like, born and bred around like other leagues and kind of grew up around those a little bit more than we do. But how much do like the dumb rules, like you mentioned, Miguel Almiron, Atlanta had to pay fucking discovery rights for a guy that they literally discovered. Like, how much does stuff like that put kind of, the worldwide audience off of MLS as a whole?
It kills your credibility, man. It kills your credibility. Get rid of things like that. There's every step forward that Major League Soccer as a whole takes. It's things like that, to the point that you made, Seth, that it's hard to get buy-in in the league as a whole when you have rules and things that are so different from the rest of the world. The storytelling that the Premier League does is first class. But I think a big difference too is the accessibility to games. The big reason why I think there's a sense of tribalism is games are most accessible because you can pay a ticket and go. Now the accessibility to games, it's harder to become a fan of MLS because I think the way the Apple TV deal is structured, it kills the buzz a bit, and that's not to knock. I have good friends who work for Apple TV, and I think they have tons of quality talent there. But the rules change every year.
Also, like, you have more games on Apple in front of a paywall than you do for the Premier League right now. And Apple does a horrendous job at marketing that fact. Like, they will market the crap out of Messi in any Apple store you go to. But, like, there should be freaking billboards up in every city that you have 250 matches for free on Apple here. Like, what? I mean, as I look at my iPhone here, nothing on my iPhone is telling me that. And my iPhone tells me a lot of things in this world.
Can your iPhone tell you if the U.S. is going to win the Gold Cup? I'd love to know that.
I mean, I'm sure AI can hallucinate. Siri can hallucinate whenever they want to hallucinate. I'll be curious if the U.S. I mean, if Costa Rica beats Mexico tonight, we'll have a USA-Mexico match at the quarterfinals in Minnesota next week.
I want that. I want that so bad for all the right reasons.
Yeah, and for some of the wrong reasons. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's in Minnesota, which might be better for some of this, but who knows? Or it might be.
Can we make it January all of a sudden, and then put it in Minnesota?
Yeah.
For the donut
record
box
around that time. It's a great record.
Sorry, I was just going to say, we kind of talked earlier a little bit. I want to get back to one thing because we're all on board on this podcast, Mike, of go all in for the Open Cup. I am personally MLS be damned. I don't give a shit what happens the rest of the season if we win this trophy. We can lose every other match for all I give a shit. Win 3 others. As a player, obviously that's not your mindset as a player. I get it. But how would you approach like the LAFC match coming up in a few weeks? That's 3 days before you have to travel to San Jose. Would you like to see rotation? Do you want to play? How do you want to manage minutes, thinking there could be 120 on the horizon in San Jose, knowing that you're only 3 wins away from lifting a trophy and getting back into CONCACAF Champions Cup?
It's good to be around people who are very logical and think with very good soccer sense, because we actually had this conversation on the Golasso Network, and we were doing our Open Cup coverage, and the question was, which coach and which club needs this Open Cup more? And my hand went up, and I was like, Austin FC for 1,000 points, please. For Nico to get a trophy, what that trophy gives you access to, the buy-in he will get from the players, the buy-in he will get from the fans, most importantly, because the fans are Austin FC. You win the fans, you win the city, in my opinion. I'm always a believer that getting your hands on the trophy, no matter what that trophy is, you always take the path of least resistance, man. Like, go for the Open Cup, go all in. And I'm with you on that. If you go and you go for 3 points against LAFC and that costs you the Open Cup, that's bad management. I send the U15s to play against LAFC. Because that's going to be a dogfight against San Jose. That's not an easy match, but it's winnable.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be out there in San Jose for that match, so it's going to be. It should be a fun one. We actually have a good group that's going out there on a Tuesday night, so we will see how that's all going to play out there. But I mean, you look at that whole western half of the draw there; it's really interesting. You have San Jose, which has not been to a CONCACAF Champions League Cup in 11 years. you have the two teams that have been in the league longer than Austin that have never been to it, the Chicago Fire, despite winning the Open Cup 4 times, because right after they started giving the automatic entrance to the Open Cup is when the Fire started stopped playing soccer for the last 15 years. So you have 4 pretty hungry teams that are going after this. So I expect that those matches are all going to be. There's a lot. I feel like compared to the eastern side of the bracket, where I mean Nashville does, I feel like has a fair bit to play for on this side, especially with how good that team is, and I would say that they are the presumptive favorites right now for the Open Cup, them in Minnesota. But it is I think it's like you have a Western bracket that is really motivated right now, which should make for some fun coverage that you guys do get to cover on the Golasso Network.
Yeah, and the fact that you got a result against the Minnesota side, right, should give you confidence that you can go and do the business. But San Jose, I mean, we know that they're going to be heavy metal. We know that it's 7 players in attack, very little of the back, and that consistency that we're now starting to see from Austin FC. I think being consistent in the game that's super chaotic, knowing that you can sit in the trenches in the midst of the chaos, should give Austin FC loads of confidence. And when you look on the other side of the bracket, I mean, you have 2 of the top 3 teams in Major League Soccer on the East right now. Your Nashville, Philadelphia still in it. I think Bradley Carnell, for me, I know everyone wants to give Vancouver's coach, Sorensen, Coach of the Year plaudits. Bradley Carnell gets my Coach of the Year for Midseason award because to take the team from where they were, I mean, this team was practically night and day different. Change the formation, getting results, but you can end up punching your ticket to get there. I think this Austin FC, in a one-off cup competition game, they do have the assets to get it done. Now it's just about making sure that you play the U15 kids against LAFC to get to San Jose and do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, or a player or a coach, like, how do you go into that game? Is it just, obviously it's a different kind of prep than like, okay, this is a league game against LAFC in July, fine, whatever. Is this kind of like a let the players play? We talked a little bit about coaches kind of doing too much. Is this like you're a Man United fan, the classic Alex Ferguson walks in, says, lads, it's Tottenham, and then you walk out type of thing? Or is it just like, everybody, hey, make sure you're doing this, like real ramp up any given Sunday speech? Or is it just sort of like, guys, your jobs, like, let's go?
I think you're looking for winning patterns and things to instill winning mentality. So if you can get a result against LAFC, you take that every day of the week because it's LAFC. But you want to look at things like reaction. So I actually had a match where we played New England in an MLS match, and the Jermaine Jones days, and this is when New England made MLS Cup. They were pushing for a high seed in the playoffs, and we were playing for 2 different things. We rotated a bunch of players, and we kept the spine of important players who were going to be fixtures in the Cup final against Seattle a couple days later. We kept that in. But the big thing was, okay, how do we deal with double teams? How do we deal with transition? There were key objectives for our back line. There were key objectives for set pieces because we knew Seattle was really good. And this was the Clinton, Obafemi Martin days. So it's, okay, how are we in transition? And it simplified the game, and it took away the stress of don't get injured because we have a game. Don't do this because we have a game. It was, this game is going to be something that helps us for the next game. And these are the things that we're going to check off on the list. It also helped that we beat them 1-0. It gave us more confidence to go and play against that Seattle side. But I think the reason why we got the result was we weren't trying to play math minutes. We had clear communication, clear objectives, and we took them into the final, which we lost.
Yeah. It's hard to beat a team multiple times in a season.
No, it really is.
I do want to kind of shift gears a little bit here. We kind of mentioned, we're like roughly halfway point. Mike, do you want to kind of tell us who your like maybe surprise player, overall player of the season is so far?
Big one for me, I'm going to go Owen Wolf. I was not familiar with your game, my friend. um, yeah, this is looking like the Owen Wolf that we saw at the U20 World Cup. I think it was in maybe the group stage, where maybe it's the first game of that group. I forgot the team, but he had a hand in the game-winning goal. And I was like, whoa, the sense of freedom he's playing with, the sense of expression he's playing with. And I was always curious how he would react not playing for his dad. And he's a player that's probably benefited the most in this formation change, because when you're a player who you've been molded to be able to try and do everything, right? We had the Owen Wolf playing fullback days. We had the Owen Wolf playing center midfield. I think that is the perfect position for him because it makes things predictable. And you get to see him use his strength. You get to see him use, he's got growing awareness. But I didn't know he could make the final pass like that. I didn't know that he had that splash of growing creativity about him, and his balance has gone through the roof. So that's my guy, most improved.
And I guess we just lost Mike there for a second. We'll get him back there. And
Yeah.
this is sometimes the nature of podcasting here, is you never know who will come in and come out of these things.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing we have an open-ended question, so you guys can. Oh, there we go. We got Mike back.
Hey,
Oh, did you guys lose me?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, Owen Wolf is my long-winded answer.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's okay.
so following up on the Owen question there, if you're Owen, there are reports out in the last couple of weeks that he is in the process of gaining Filipino citizenship. Do you go and try to become the star of the Philippines national team, or do you still try to tread your way through to maybe be on the Gold Cup bench for the United States?
I think you hold out for Gold Cup bench for the United States, man. This is a kid that Sebastian Berhalter is prime example. All it takes, and I've played with players that things just click and start clicking the season before, and it takes you to another level the following season. And right now, I'm in the state that the U.S. men's national team's in, where if you're an MLS player, you're going to get some chances that you may have not before under the Berhalter, regime. And Owen and Sebastian are good friends, right? So I would hold out for the U.S. team, and solely because I don't know how the Philippines is doing World Cup qualifiers, but
No, they're long out. I mean, you know what this
okay,
is like from your days of playing for Sierra Leone.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, you.
So
I mean, I will say the only major advantage to that I see for him is that every World Cup from here on out is 48 teams. If you get to build a team up through a cycle where in Asia you now have 8 direct qualifying bids, that's interesting.
well,
Yeah, I think that's
make
still,
sure he gets
that's
his
still
brothers
just
to
so.
go with him.
Oh no, I think Tyler will probably be the first one jumping there. But little older there, and I mean I don't see a pathway. Gavin is way too young for us to figure out if there's a pathway there, but Tyler doesn't have a pathway to the U.S. I don't see it. But
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Mike here. The Philippines aren't going anywhere. Like Mikel Antonio was 31 when he declared for Jamaica. Like the option will be there.
All it takes, one good
Yep.
half season.
Yep.
And you're
a
on
little
the
bit of a
roster.
heater, get your shot, and get in.
yeah, and also I can imagine. I mean, you can obviously empathize with this, having done it. I have to imagine the travel for going from hey, we're gonna go play Malaysia right now in Kuala Lumpur in Asian Cup qualifying, like on 4 days rest from flying from a match in like Minnesota.
Oh, dude, imagine if he has to go to Kuala Lumpur, coming from New York or Boston.
Yeah.
That's a whole. You've heard my story, Seth.
Yes, I mean you can share. So I mean, I remember you tried to fly out from Seattle to get to some of your destination, like crazy
Dude,
stuff there.
yeah, man, it is. You are not flying, and most of the times, if you're not playing for France, if you're not playing for, I mean, the U.S. flies nice. If you're not playing for some of the established countries, you were doing that stuff, coach. And your
Not
body
just,
feels
and it's not like Coach on Emirates. It's
no,
Coach on
yeah,
whatever's the cheapest carrier that can get you there.
yeah. You're doing cheap airlines just to get
What
there,
was your
and
longest travel day to get back for a match?
um, gosh, so I did one from South Africa. So I went from Kenya to back to Philadelphia, and it took me almost 48 hours of total travel time.
Oh my gosh.
And 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 this it was right before it was 2015. It was right before the Open Cup semifinals. I did this. There was a lot of hell to pay physically with the coaches. I had a moment where we were playing in Dallas and the game went to penalties. And I was like, oh my gosh. By the end of the 90 minutes, all I wanted to do was sleep. And Jim Curtin would not take me out. After the full time whistle blew, I don't know how I remained on the field. I was passing the ball out of bounds because I couldn't, like, my brain was fried. And I've never been so happy to not take a penalty kick because I knew I would have kicked it to the moon. I would have missed it. I was so knackered. My body was in like 6 different time zones. It was one of the toughest experiences, man. But we won.
Got the W. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
How understanding are coaches or kind of your fellow teammates in those sorts of situations? Obviously, MLS is a little unique in that they don't really observe, FIFA dates, or they kind of do, but they kind of don't. So, like, do your teammates understand, like, oh, I got to go play for my country, or is it sort of like, oh, really, you're gonna like fly off and do that again? Like, we got this huge game. How does that work?
So with African countries, MLS coaches are very not understanding of that. They're very they lack a lot of sympathy for it, and that was a big fight that I had where it was almost, and Kai Kamara can attest to this, where whenever we would go and play for Sierra Leone, there was hell to pay when we got back, and it was looked down upon because we weren't Nigeria, we weren't some of the big names of African soccer, and it cost me at different times, you know, but it was more than just for my soccer career. It was very personal, and it was redeeming for my story. It was to represent your country is the highest honor you can ever get in the soccer world. And so I would do it again. I would miss some of the games I missed. I I wish MLS adhered more to the international calendar. That's a whole nother chat. In ways that my other national team teammates, it didn't cost them, but it was tough. It was always a big fight. The number one thing was, what airlines are you flying? Where are you staying? Where's the embassy? Because on the flip side, there was chaos that ensued with it because flying back was a disaster half the time. So it was tough.
Speaking of calendars, before we talk a little more Austin FC, a lot of conversation about MLS moving to the European style calendar of, August through May, basically. What are your thoughts on that? Not playing through the summer here in North America, where the climate is just so radically different than just about anywhere else, especially considering I think sometimes when people say, hey, we should do this calendar or that calendar, they're not from here, don't recognize the extremes of weather and how large of a space that this continent covers. I would love to hear your perspective as a player. Which one would you rather have? Because you would have had to play in those conditions in Philadelphia in like January, February, right?
Yeah, look, and Seth, you live in one of those cities now.
Yeah.
That those winters, man, those
I mean,
winters
one
will
of the coldest
kick your
sporting events I've
ass.
ever been to in my life was an 18-degree March day a couple years ago at Soldier Field.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't wish that on anyone.
yeah.
No, I mean it. As much as I'd like to sit here and say, hey, let's do it, let's make the switch. you won't see a soul in those stands, man. and look at when the season starts. Right now, it's getting earlier and earlier. I just think it would kill the product. It'd be a radical shift, but it would be a disconnect between what's actually happening on the grounds and the cities. And I don't foresee anyone going to Chicago, Boston, anything in the north for big games. I don't even care if Messi shows up. Like, that's too cold, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's getting to a world of one of the ideas that we've floated around on here is as if the league wants to continue expansion, because right now the main cash grab for the league is these $500 million expansion fees. It's double what the Apple TV contract is on an annual basis. Like that is, and obviously the Apple TV contract, you got to pay announcers, you got to pay for some cameras. I'm still shocked at how few camera angles there are in MLS this season. Like, we're watching some Club World Cup and Gold Cup matches from MLS venues. How are there twice as many cameras in there for this? I mean, obviously you've been involved in the production side of this. Like, I don't get it. But as we start going through it, it's that, does this league ultimately need to go to a world where it is? I mean, I get to a point of the match you talked about in Dallas earlier. Like, it is physically not safe to play in Chicago in January, but it's also not safe to play in Texas in July at this point. Like, does this league need to go to a world where you effectively have an 18-team Southern League and an 18-team Northern League that are on different calendars? Like, does that make sense?
That's interesting.
Or is that crazy? Is this crazy talk of splitting a league in two like this?
Yeah, I just think that we'll see the impacts of what's to come post World Cup, right? Because you're going to need revenue generators, and MLS is such an inflection point where you have so many things that are ready to be changed that I don't think the scheduling is one of them right now. I think that there will be a point where that needs to get revisited, but the single entity thing, for me, address some of that stuff.
But I guess you now feel like you have 30 ownership groups that are responsible. They can actually go run real clubs. I mean, it would probably create a few jobs, because you probably have to create some more like HR and finance functions at the local club level for certain things. But like, it is, I don't know, like, it just doesn't seem like, it seems like that structure made sense for 1996 and 2006. I don't think it makes sense for 2026, much less 2036.
Yeah, no, I mean, what do you guys think? Especially in being, and we all are fans of a club who plays in a severe weather advisory portion of the year, which is the summer.
My personal opinion is there's not a good answer. I actually would prefer to go to that fall spring calendar with championship in the spring, because once you get to September, you're competing against college and the NFL, college football and the NFL. And I'm sorry, you're losing that battle every time, because everybody loves to say, well, the NFL is number one in viewership, but you always forget college football is the second most popular sport in this country by viewership, and it's not remotely close. Well, when does the MLS play its matches? It's on the weekends mostly, and playoffs are at the same time. So I don't like the inflection point and the highest competitive nature of the season being up against the absolute apex of American sports. At the same time, this only works if you take some kind of a winter break. So do you take a month and a half off in January and mid-February if we start playing in August? That's that. I listen to that. I think that's an argument worth having. And then you could also get more into a year-round Open Cup from like August, September through that ends in May. So now you have a couple of, if you have think about a May where you have Open Cup, MLS Cup, and CONCACAF Champions Cup, 3 championship matches kind of in the same 3-4 week window, like we already have in Europe. Like, that makes it super interesting, I think, for fans, because right now all those things are spread out and it's hard to build something around all that.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to build genuine interest, right? Because that's a great point you make. It's so disconnected. If I didn't know this year, if I didn't have to cover it for work, I couldn't have told you when the CONCACAF Champions Cup was going to be. I can tell you what MLS Cup is going to be because that's the big lead up to Major League Soccer. Everything unfolds. Generally, I know an idea of where the U.S. Open Cup because it's in line with MLS Cup. But that's awesome. I love that idea, and that's the first time I've heard of it. So you need to quit your day job, go market that, and we'll all be rich.
Just pull me on Galazzo show. I'll yell about it like once a week until something actually happens. It's fine.
Dude, we can make magic happen.
Awesome.
Mike,
Thanks
you
so
gotta
much
go.
for joining us, Mike, today. Like, this is always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
Good to see your face.
Okay.
Obviously, best of wishes to you and the family on some hopefully exciting times upcoming in the months ahead here. And
Before we let you go, we got one final question. You can say it's a quick in and out. Where does Austin FC end the season?
Give me playoffs, baby. Give me playoffs. I think ultimately in that, what are we now, 7th? Let's go. Austin FC.
7th, but we have played more matches than a bunch of the other teams.
Austin FC.
Yeah, we're at 26 points right now, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
With
Austin FC will finish in 9th place. 9th place. And that gets you in.
existential question: is 8th or 9th actually the playoffs unless you win the play-in game?
Man, look, it is to me because it's Austin FC because we need this.
Fair enough.
You know what?
Yeah, I think
an Austin FC Open Cup winning season and a 9th place finish, that's like winning the Champions League. I'll take that.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I like that answer.
Yeah.
Hey, we appreciate the time, man. We really do.
Nah,
Thank
good
you.
to see you guys again. Seth, always a pleasure.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Mike. I do want to do a couple of roundup questions just to finish this off here. So, Seth and Brad, you want to give me your goal of the season so far?
My goal this season, I was thinking about this beforehand. Like, I'm going to give not necessarily the prettiest goal of the season, because it's definitely not the prettiest goal of the season, but I think our goal against RSL with the subs at the end in stoppage time there is the most important goal we scored this season. If we lose that match, I mean, yes, we did go out and lose to San Diego a couple of days later, but getting a point out of that match and showing that we had some grit to come back in an MLS match and get a point at home that day is something that is going to keep is just building resiliency and saying that, like, we are not just solely dependent on our starting 11 to get things done is probably the most important goal we've scored in the first half of the season.
Two-part answer for me. They're both Brandon Vasquez. The goal of the season, as far as just enjoy watching holy shit goal, it's got to be the free kick, right? But most important goal of the season, the third goal against El Paso Locomotive. His second of the night, third of the game that actually put us ahead, and I think changed the course of the entire season for us at this point.
Yeah, I got to go with Brad on the most important one is the El Paso goal. I'm going back and forth. I really, really love our finally a fucking front post goal from last week. So I do have to shout that one out again. And then the team goal for Kolmanich, I thought was a great goal too, and
especially in the way that we scored that in Minnesota was so important with how do we keep building this up as a team and really building that resiliency. I mean, that is the story of all three of these goals were all goals that were coming from behind goals. Like, yep. If this team is going to want to make an Open Cup run and make a playoff run, that's going to be essential to this. We're not going to be in front in every one of these games.
Well, I mean, we can try, but yeah, we
watched enough Austin.
It'd be a lot more fun if we could just be in front the whole time. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I do want to get the, what we asked Mike too. I also want to shout myself out because we were kind of talking about this before the show, and I think I predicted we would score something like 60 or 65 goals this season. So don't pay attention to anything I have to say, but I disagree that 8th, 9th is in the playoffs, but I would definitely take 9th and Open Cup champions.
I think Brad and I are on the record saying we would take 10th or 11th in Open Cup champions.
True. I would take that too.
Open Cup wooden spoon is the dream.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to go that far. Like I do not want to be. I don't want to pull the Ben Olsen special here.
No, I want to do the Tottenham where you're 17th, but you get a European trophy.
But would Nico survive then?
Oh, good question. A succulent American U.S. Open Cup trophy. We'll see.
No, but I think he would, because I think Anthony Precourt is much more forgiving than Daniel Levy is.
Yeah. I also think they just don't want to get rid of him and hire another coach, so it might just be sheer inertia. But where are we finishing? Brad, do you want to go first?
I kind of think we're going to finish right about where we are right now. I think 7th is where this team ends up. I know the schedule gets easier comparatively to what it has been in the beginning of the season, based on how the standings are shaking out so far. But we still have we haven't scored more than 2 in a league match all year.
No.
And that's defense is way better, but it's still concerning for me that we're not scoring enough goals. And until we show that we can score, pops of 3 and 4 on occasion, along with consistently getting in a couple of goals, I don't see us being more than about a 7th place team.
Well, yeah, and we've scored 2 only a few times, and those were recent games. So I guess trending up, but it's not like we have little flits of 2 here and there. It's
sure. And the other part of that too of my thought is the West is not very good, plain and simple. So I just don't see that many teams behind us that I feel that I have enough faith in that can come catch us. If we play moderately decent soccer, 20 more points out of 17 matches should get us in the playoff.
We need to change our club crest to say if we play moderately decent soccer.
Or 15 matches, I'm sorry. 20 out of 15 is what I think we need.
Yeah. Seth, where are we finishing?
I have us down for 8th because I think we're not going to be able to take advantage of our Leagues Cup. As I was looking at our schedule, we don't really get, I was hoping we do sort of get a break here the next couple of weeks. We get to play the Sounders on Saturday, who, I don't know. I don't think there's an MLS team that has ever played as 3 hard of a matches coming into what they're facing. I mean, yes, they haven't had to travel, but I mean, Botafogo, Atletico, and then PSG tomorrow, you know what? The Sounders have done pretty well. Imagine what they could have done with 2 or 3 more depth pieces on those teams. They could have gotten results out of those matches. They scored in each of the matches. They outperformed Botafogo in that second half. And they held yes, they gave up a goal to Axel Witsel, which but it's also we're an MLS team at the same point. It's been really cool. I sort of wish the other MLS teams got to host at home. Miami sort of did, but Miami's its own weird thing. But I do feel bad for LAFC that it's hey, congratulations, you are in the Club World Cup. We're going to send you to Atlanta on a Monday at 3:00 in the afternoon, to Nashville at 6:00 on a Friday, and then I think their final match is, I have to check where it is, but it's maybe Orlando.
It's somewhere on the East Coast.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely not. I mean, obviously they got into the Club World Cup on 2 weeks' notice, and it's not like Club America where there would have been 30,000 fans because there's fans everywhere. Yeah, they play Flamenco in at Camping World in Orlando. Yeah, that's going to be a road. I mean, you know what? I do want to also just give a shout out to the Aurora Red Dragons, Esperance Tunis. The South American teams we knew were going to bring it with their fans, but some of these Asian and African teams that have shown up with their fans. Al-Ahly's had thousands of fans at matches. It's been really kind of, as much as this is the cash grab World Cup and it's kind of being done for dubious reasons, it's pretty fun to see some of these other teams.
Yeah, I saw a video of one fan from Asia who was he flew to Seattle, put on a River Plate kit, and started cheering with the River fans just because they were playing his rival team. And he flew all the way from Asia just to hate his rival team. That.
Yes,
love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and there was running jokes because at the beginning of the Aurora Red Dragons River Plate match that you had the captain of the Red Dragons refuse to shake the hand of the River Plate team, which is just really weird and bizarre, and they probably deserve to lose for that. But there was all these memes online. It's Boca's just signed him. He's going to be a hero in certain parts of Buenos Aires. I'm yes, I'm here for this level banter.
Did you see the video too yesterday from the Rose Bowl, from the River game, where one fan, I don't know if he's local or just wasn't paying attention. Of course, fans aren't really segregated in the Club World Cup like we're used to. And he wore a Boca kit right in the middle of the river section and had to be basically escorted out for his life. make sure.
Yeah, but it's also kind of crazy to think about. Remember a couple years ago, we had a friendly between those exact two teams, between River and Rayados at Q2, that attracted like 4,000 people on a Tuesday night.
Yeah,
And there were 85,000 at the Rose Bowl yesterday.
Yeah, I want to run back to something Seth said. First of all, fuck LAFC, so I don't care. Second, aren't the Sounders also down 2 players from red cards when they play us?
I have to double check on that, but that sounds
their
right.
last league
Also,
match
the question is, so you have a match there tomorrow where the Sounders are playing PSG. You have another match there on Wednesday. Apparently, they are reinstalling the turf between Wednesday night and Saturday night.
That seems doable, though.
What could go wrong with this?
Being that it's a plastic pitch, that seems like doable, though.
Why not?
But like it is a question of still getting like doable, like physically, yes, obviously doable. Do we think even a plastic pitch can settle in 3 days? Like,
no,
I mean, Driussi took it. It's utterly ironic considering he would barely play on that pitch. He took a nasty fall on that grass. That was like that. Honestly, looked like a turf injury. The one that he took right after scoring, and I do feel bad for him. It sounds like he's going to be out for like 3 months or even right now.
Yeah, I don't think we need to wish ill on him at this point. So
no, I mean he's actually come into form quite nicely down there, and good for him. It's that's good for Austin FC future resale value.
Yep. I'm going to round us out here. I think preseason I was definitely the optimist of the group, but I think I had us 4th. I'm going to go 7th because it fits our mold of actually being in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I never finished answering the question. I have us at 8th. I think I had us at 6th preseason, but someone should actually go back and listen to the podcast.
It's not going to be me.
I'm pretty sure preseason I had us around 5. So, we're lowering expectations as we have more information at hand now.
I think most people were in the 5 to 7 and we're scoring a bunch of goals range. And I was trying to be optimistic at 4, but
I don't know. Is 15 a bunch?
Hey, I mean, it would have been
one match, sure. Yeah, one match. That'd be great to watch.
Yeah. Anything else we need to cover before we get out of here and get this out to the nice people?
Yeah, I mean, we got as we were saying, going to Seattle Saturday. That LAFC. I mean, these are 2 matches that these are the teams directly ahead of us on the table right now. These are huge opportunity matches. LAFC has struggled here sometimes in the summer. These are points that. I'm not saying we have to get 6 points. I don't think it's that level, but I think that both these matches are 3 points gettable. Yeah,
I think if we can come out of them with 3 total, I'd be pretty happy. If we come out anything more, I'll be very happy. The team seems to be playing better the last little bit. I also really hope this extended break is going to help Uzuni. I know he flew right back to over to Europe as soon as we played last match, so he could spend a little extra time, and he's getting some extra time with his baby finally, and seeing some family. Hopefully, that'll be really good for Bacati too, even though he's really rounded into form. I think getting away is going to help these guys because they have been go since January, and they haven't really had any time to get away. And that's just not them; the whole team. I know for sure the team was able to get 3, 4, 5 days away from the training ground. So really hope that we can come back out, play some solid soccer. We're kind of back to that mostly 1 match a week stretch for quite a while, with the exception of the Open Cup.
So. Well, no, I mean, if you look at it, we got 4. So after LAFC, I mean, we have San Jose only on 2 days rest away.
Yeah.
And then we've got New England at home on the 12th, and we go back out to Carson on the 16th. So that's 4 matches in 11 days there. But then we have a 10-day break because there's that weekend of the 19th where everyone else is playing in the league. We chose not to play, which is interesting because that was our Colorado match, which is interesting that we chose not to play and it would have been in Colorado. So even with the All-Star game wouldn't have been an issue. So there might've been something else going on there. I'm not quite.
It's All-Star game related.
Okay. Yeah. So then we've got that, and then we've got so 10 days off there, so that's good on that front. And then we also get 2 weeks off after the DC United match is our only match for 3.5 weeks. So even if we win Open Cup, those matches, the semis wouldn't be until September 17th or 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Good, plenty of time to recharge. Yeah. Everybody gets rounded into form and kick ass and take names the last 3 months of the season.
Yeah. Also, just we're not playing on a Wednesday, but most of the league is playing Wednesday. So, yeah, you can go just watch some matches.
Yeah, well, and isn't Leagues Cup's going to be Wednesday night matches too this year?
Leagues
right?
Cup is Wednesday night matches, except the first weekend of August where we are off because
Okay.
there is one weekend of that.
So there is a chance we could potentially catch some. I mean,
No. So I just ran through these scenarios.
Yeah,
You're
right.
The teams that we play during Leagues Cup: Houston, Dallas, and Montreal, and San Jose. All teams that are not in Leagues Cup.
Okay, got it.
And then they tried to schedule intentionally Leagues Cup teams against Leagues Cup teams and non-Leagues Cup teams against non-Leagues Cup teams, which is sort of fair to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually fair.
This is a rare thing on scheduling principles of MLS, so we didn't know.
Yeah, I'm shocked MLS thought of it. But
yeah, they got this right is kind of weird.
Yeah, feels wrong that they
So,
got
like, I was talking to my parents because they're flying back. We're doing a little vacation in August, so they're like, we have to be back they're doing a big 10-year anniversary game in Cincinnati on August 10th. And it's like they play 3 Leagues Cup matches. Admittedly, they're all at home, but they play 3 Leagues Cup matches in 10 days and like have a Thursday to Sunday match at the end of that period. I was just like, I mean, they're playing Charlotte, who's also at Leagues Cup, but it's still like, ooh.
Yeah, it's a lot.
There's going to be some exhausted teams, but we're not going to get to take advantage of that. So we got to go take advantage of our Club World Cup gift here.
Yeah. And in non-Austin news, I got to say how funny it is that the match at Q2 the very next night after the U.S. men's national team was here was more well attended than the actual U.S. men's national team match because, well, prices were terrible. This is what you get, CONCACAF. Sorry.
Yeah. Brad and I went to that game. It was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least we won. At least we won tonight. But yeah, it's just like the people, if you want, I mean, as long as you're willing to pay us, okay, we can get to a point where the 3 of us can run pricing strategy for this. And you know what? We will get full matches and we'll sell lots of concessions. We will sell all sorts of things. You can make more money, CONCACAF. We promise you. Or unless that, but I honestly think this should be called the Oil Cup at this point because this cup is just being brought to you by Saudi Arabia. I'm very sad. One of my, sadly, we don't release this on video, but my jaw dropped when Trinidad and Tobago hit the crossbar earlier while we were recording. If that shot had gone in, Saudi Arabia would have missed the knockout stages of the Gold Cup, which is just like this tournament is. Saudi dumped enough money there, so CONCACAF is just sort of making money and laughing at this point, I think. But like this is, I mean, maybe they want to give the Saudis a home advantage because they're used to playing in front of stadiums with no fans.
It was very jarring walking into the stadium of the night, and I will say, I did not buy a ticket face value. I got one that somebody was reselling about a few hours before match, and so it was way lower than what they were trying to charge. But it was jarring walking into the stadium with a giant tent with a PIF, like the PIF tent. For the Saudi Investment Fund, or whatever the P stands for, I forget. But public, yeah, Saudi Public Investment Fund, where it's, if you don't know, it is essentially a giant mechanism for sports washing that has been going on for the last several years. And then as you're leaving, of course, trying to hand you PIF stickers and PIF swag. It was odd. It was very odd.
Yeah, there was also the Visit Saudi Arabia tent. They had like on the big like video board scoreboard before the game, they had a bunch of ads for Saudi Arabia, the 900 companies they have that sponsor the Gold Cup. They had basically all the ad boardings were Aramco, which is the Saudi oil company, all sorts of things like that. And I think, Riley and I went and her first reaction walking out of the stadium was like, wow, sports washing really works, doesn't it?
But like the PIF is way more than just a sports washing institution.
Yes,
the PIF is the sovereign wealth fund to Saudi Arabia. So like if you are a Saudi citizen, and like the majority of people in Saudi Arabia are not citizens, you can come for our non-existent Patreon. If you ever want to learn about what like golf life and other things are from non-golf perspectives and from golf perspectives, but that's just called buying me a beer at some point in a non-golf country and learning about these things. But it is a fascinating world. Pretty much, if you are a Saudi citizen, the PIF will pay for you to go to college elsewhere in the world at this point, as long as you commit to returning either to Saudi Arabia or working for a Saudi company.
Yeah, I don't think, they're pretty common, but sovereign wealth funds aren't really well known in the U.S. just because of how kind of our financial structure works and how just the country in general works. But
I mean,
yeah, if you
Alaska
want
is
to
the
learn
only
about
state with a sovereign wealth fund, so they have the permanent trusts up there, and they get dividends. And people in Alaska, depending on how their budget's doing, and depending on the price of oil, which I hear is going up this week, it's somewhere between like $300 and $3,000 a year you get for just being an Alaska resident, and you get to benefit from the oil wealth of our 49th state.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you want like a really, really detailed description of how all this stuff works, like with charts and graphs and shit, find me at some point and I'll explain it to you. But I'm sure Seth would be happy to do the same thing. Anything else we need to cover? Any big Canadian football news before we get out of here?
Three Rouges this week.
Three Rouges this week? Okay.
We still have three undefeated teams. We had the Saskatchewan Roughriders walk off the Toronto Argonauts. Like, okay, you have a kicker. You have a strong enough leg. I mean, yes, the wind was blowing the other way, but like, try to get a Rouge on the final kickoff there, and allowing a kick return for a touchdown to lose a game. Ooh, I mean, not kick 6 level bad, but like it is, or kick 6 level good. But I know this is inverse it for you, Brad. Here,
tough start to the season for the Argos.
Yeah, it has not been good. They had a rough season last year though, throughout the year, and then turned it on when it mattered. So there's still plenty of time.
Yeah.
And you know what? The CFL is more forgiving.
Wait, Seth, we lost you.
Yeah.
Seth's on mute. Doesn't realize he's on mute.
We've
been here for an hour and a half. It's understandable.
No, it is.
There you are.
Okay, no, it is. There's some lag. I have the game up in the background, but as everything else is going on here, CFL is more forgiving than MLS. 6 of the 9 teams make the CFL playoffs. So if you miss the CFL playoffs, especially in the East, where 3 out of 4 teams make it, okay, that's really sad at this point. I mean, the Argos had to go through, didn't get the bye, but they still won in the playoffs last year. They just had to go to Montreal, and they got to win.
See, never would have happened if we still had Birmingham and Shreveport and Baltimore, all the traditional CFL places.
Sure.
I mean, and also, I guess, second time we mentioned this in the podcast, congratulations to the Florida Panthers. So that continues our favorite fact in sports, that an American team has won the CFL more recently than a Canadian team has won the NHL.
Yep. 92, 91 for the Canadiens was the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup.
93.
93, yeah. Patrick Waugh in his last cup there before going to Denver.
I just know I was but a wee Bergkamp lover at that point. So, all right. Before we get out of here, I do want to wish everybody a happy Midsommar, which is nominally on Tuesday, but was celebrated by most Scandinavian countries on Friday. Bless all of you for sticking around this long. I'm not going to sing the little frog song for you, but that is a nice tradition. I'll link a video in the show notes. Brad's face is awesome here, which is the only reason I brought that up. So we'll link that for you. And on behalf of Brad, Seth, and especially Mike, our special guest today, thanks for suffering with us. Bye.
There's a frog song?
Promise here for Austin Jarrett Stroud. It's Diego for goodness! He has written his name into Austin folklore.
They just won't go away.
Oh, he hits the upright again! That's impossible!
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
Altidore squares it. Dempsey's missed it. Donovan has it. From hope, there is glory.